On Saturday afternoon at a church outside Atlanta, we will say our goodbyes to Jim Huber. He died Monday at the age of 67, just a matter of days after he was diagnosed with leukemia. In a sporting sense, you could call Jim a man for all seasons. He'd covered them all in the course of his career. Here at Turner, he was known as our essayist, meaning he knew just what to say and just how to say it. He was the best storyteller I've ever known. But from watching Jim on TV, you only caught a glimpse of the man. Husband to Carol, father to Matt. He was an author, writing of Tom Watson's 4 Days in July and honoring his late father with 1,000 goodbyes. And these paintings? Yeah, Jim was an artist as well. We leave you tonight with a look back at the life and career of a true gentleman. Jim Huber started his career as a newspaper reporter, covering all manner of sports from the NBA to the NHL to professional football. In 1984, he joined the fledgling cable news network CNN and soon found his niche with The Sporting Life with Jim Huber. Jim came to Turner Sports in 2000, and his role as a reporter and essayist would take him around the globe, making him the most canny of witnesses to the achievements and failures of the men and women and the games they played, there to share in their victories and relive their defeats. He told the stories of the sporting world, both past and present, with his distinctive and beautiful prose. Jim, in his own words from his book, 4 Days in July. I wanted to sit in front of a roaring fire, gather my friends at my feet, and tell them stories that would make them both smile and cry. I wanted to place them on the wings of their imagination and visit people and places that would quicken their hearts and souls. Our hearts are heavy with the passing of our friend, but our souls enriched from having him part of our lives. Here's a sampling of Jim's incomparable body of work, beginning with his essay on the Atlanta Olympic bombing, words that won him an Emmy.
But where there is tragedy, there is a tighter grasp on our neighbor's hand. Where there is failure, there is victory one lane over. And where there is the darkened sadness of rain, there is a cleansing sky behind. The games of Atlanta, like those of Munich, will likely be dressed for all time in a macabre mask of death. And while that might honor those who were taken, it might also do dishonor to the thousands who came to compete in great fellowship. And so in our moment of silence, remember both. They teach us to study the browning of the courts, there especially on the baselines, and then to close our eyes and imagine the fury that left those scars. They teach us the limits of the sporting man and woman, bandaged, hobbled, bent, and sometimes flat prone, only to rise and strike back in search of a legacy. The shot would come from the rafters, elegantly cradled in one hand or the other, a flick of the wrist, and it would softly find its way home. Always. The shot, the fabled skyhook, would be the weapon that would bring the stoic, graceful, bespectacled Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to the edge of one of the most significant moments in NBA history. And he knew. Oh, how he knew. Look at his eyes. Could it be? Watch his shot. Is it possible? He was, after all, just 2 when his legendary uncle Drazen Petrovic died in 1993. Perhaps we must look deep within his eyes. Since we can't cut open his heart or peer into his soul, the eyes will have to be the door through which we climb to discover what it is that makes Tiger Woods so indomitable. There is warmth there, for there is so much fire. And how ironic that there is also a coldness to them, a frozen focus that sees only the direction of his drive, the shape of his iron, the path of his putt. There is a sort of aura that blankets this tiny corner of the world, a feeling, if you will, that this is sacred ground, and that the game's first caretakers still have a very stern eye on you and your behavior. They may be buried a few blocks away, old Tom Morris, Allen Robertson, and the others, but their spirits remain in every blade of grass, every grain of sand, every howl of wind that makes St. Andrews such a special place. And that is why, if they can ever truly put their finger on it, those gathered here this week will tell you, if they're going to win any championship on any one course on this planet, it would be right here. And now he takes leave. We cannot be sorry, for we have had the pleasure of his company now for 45 years. We can only be joyful for what he gave us all. And if you happen to see him along some desolate fishing stream one day, stop and applaud. It will probably be the one thing he will miss the most, and the one thing he will deserve forever. And of course, there was Turnbull. The entire world seemed to provide the wind at old Tom Watson's near 60-year-old back as he magically carved his way toward history. One very dodgy 8-foot putt for par at the 18th, however, left us all breathless, and a weary playoff trudge later, he could only summon second place to Stuart Sink, who, like Cabrera 3 months earlier, never once led until the extra hole. As the frail little boy wandered Old Eastlake at the turn of the 20th century, who could have imagined him growing up to become a citizen of the world, adored and honored as few who went before, who have come along since? And who would have thought, as he stormed the planet in 1930, that we would remain reverently astonished at his feat 3/4 of a century later? But as the old caddy told him that day in 1936, "My, but you are a wonder, sir." And wasn't he ever?